there was once a teacher of mine that said there are two types of questions. There are knowledge questions and there are liberation questions. And knowledge questions are, I want to know something more. And they're not very satisfactory. They might relax the mind and get rid of some doubt. And so they're helpful on that level. I think any question is helpful if it's coming up. Okay, then that's the question that needs to be answered, whether verbally or through silence, and then the answer comes itself. So there's knowledge questions, but there's also liberation questions that ask you a question that actually points back to your own direct experience rather than gives you anything. It in some ways takes something away. So that's my little preface. This, I feel, is more of a knowledge question. Again, they have their place. It's not to say this is a wrong question at all. It's just to distinguish between the two is sometimes helpful. So the question was about karma and whether it stops us or is in any way has an effect on liberation or enlightenment or your path, let's say. And I think I've talked about karma. I don't even know if I've talked about it in a group before, but I think personally, again, this is just my viewpoint of it. I'm not trying to be definitive here or say that there aren't other viewpoints, but this is my viewpoint on it. Karma, I feel like, is one of those really misunderstood ideas. And it's very, very, very linked into a moral judgment of good and bad. Whereas my view of karma is much more of a description of the cycle of actions that we find ourselves in. Not really judging them as good or bad particularly, just as a description. This is a cycle that keeps repeating itself, keeps coming up and over and up and over and back in again. And I think most people tend to take the idea of karma very personally, as I have done something good or bad. Whether it's in this life, past lives, whatever, there's this idea, I did wrong, or I did good even. And I would tend to ask the question, well, who did good and who did bad? And it's all predicated on this idea of I am an I who is in charge, in control, and is doing. And anyone who's been with me for long enough will know that I am a big fan, based on my own inquiry and looking into the nature of life, that there is no doer. There is doing, absolutely. There is the appearance of the doer, there is the appearance of doing. But I am consciousness, not just the mind-body. The mind-body is appearing within consciousness, within me. And so to propose that I did good or I did bad is based on this idea of I'm not consciousness. I am the mind-body who makes a choice. And I would always question whether that is truly a choice or a choiceless choice. The thought arose spontaneously within me that said, I want to choose this. So karma, to bring it back to karma, I would say we have a tendency to take ownership I would say too much. We take too much ownership on life. And this is where the moral judgment gets into play. To me, karma is just the description of how life is playing out in us and through us. And often when we talk of karma, we're judging life. We're judging life. We're judging how we could have been doing it better, how we could have been doing it differently. And I just want to say, I would investigate that. I would encourage you to investigate that. Investigate whether you can even choose a single thought that gives rise to a single decision. And so as it relates to liberation, to awakening, to the recognition of our nature, when the recognition of ourself comes about, do we choose this? And is there something that stops us? Well, yes, there can be things that stop us from seeing clearly. But do we choose it? Again, I keep coming back to the same question again and again. So on a deeper level, I feel it's all playing out in absolutely the way it has to. The awakening of our own nature to ourself is playing out in its own time scale. Because no matter how much we think we're affecting that time scale, even that is part of the inevitable time scale that we find ourselves on. It can be that we have a particular cycle, a particular occlusion of life, unclear seeing of life that does stop us from seeing ourselves clearly, our nature clearly. But again, do we have to take the clinging ownership of it? I think not. If something is continually playing out in our life, a particular pattern, a particular way of living, a habit, until it's completely seen through and dissolved, it will keep coming up and around. So the best we can do is to be aware of that, to stay open to life, to observe, to witness, to listen to life, if you can.